A little disclaimer here at the beginning of this episode. This story is filled with a lot of complicated words, not in my native tongue. I did the very best I could to pronounce them, but I know that I have mispronounced most of them. That being said, I hope you find this story very interesting. Following a day fishing on the Tietê River near the small village of Aracaraguama in Brazil on March 4th, 1946, Joao, Prestes, Filho, and Salvador dos Santos would pack up their equipment into their horse-drawn cart and begin their journey home. Filho would take Santos home first, bidding his friend farewell before heading to his own house. His surroundings were a blanket of black. Aracaraguama was yet to enjoy the benefits of electricity. Furthermore, most of the village had traveled to San Roque, around 7 miles away, to celebrate the carnival season. Filho hated such festivities, and so chose to spend the day fishing with his like-minded friend. However, upon returning home, he realized his wife had forgotten to leave him a key. Tired and hungry, he searched the property for a way to gain entry. He spotted an open window and managed to squeeze himself through it. As soon as he did so, a strange feeling permeated his body. He had an intense feeling that someone was watching him. He turned quickly to look out of the window, expecting someone to be looking back at him. Instead, though, a bright, hot light struck his body. Filho instinctively placed his hands to his face. The whole incident lasted a matter of seconds, but he felt a burning sensation spread around his entire body. He managed to open his front door and ran from his property barefoot, heading for his sister Maria's home. By the time he arrived, his feet were a bloody mess from the sharp rocks that scattered his route, a route he had to negotiate in the dark. He complained to Maria that he had been burned, and she duly informed the local police. Malaquas, the village police chief, arrived shortly after to investigate. Filho would tell him in no uncertain terms that his attacker had not been from this world. As he spoke to the wounded man, he noticed the flesh around his leg was coming away from the bone, and it looked like meat that had been allowed to boil for a while. Several members of Filho's family arrived not long after. All noted how gravely ill he looked. His usually fair skin was now roasted red. His hands were particularly deformed from the assault, twisted and burnt. Strangely, his face bore burn marks, but his hair was seemingly unaffected and completely intact. He was also struggling to speak, perhaps due to damage to his tongue. Ideally, the sheriff wanted to have Filho taken to the main hospital in Sao Paulo. However, the roads were treacherous to begin with, especially at night. They would decide to take him instead to nearby Santana de Parnaíba Hospital. As he was moved into the awaiting truck for the journey, his entire body was, quote, truly ruinous with severe burns all over. After his admittance, doctors were at a loss as to what would cause such rapid burns and the ruination of his body. His final hours, if the accounts are accurate, were truly horrifying. The medic and orderly who was with Filho in these final hours would later state it was as if he was decomposing alive. Flesh continued to fall away from the bone. When the tissue around his jaw fell away, he would no longer communicate. Filho died a short time later. The official cause of death? Cardiac arrest.